Before we start, I just want to frame the target audience and the purpose of the webinar. So primarily with our presentation and webinar today, we're targeting product and project managers for all kind of service and product companies. We are targeting executives, all level of executives involved in the decision-making process. We are also targeting all type of IT decision makers and business analysts, and of course you are more than welcome to join the webinar even if you are none of the classified target people in this list. So we hope you can take something home out of this webinar. In particular, the purpose is to provide you with a better understanding of what release and service planning is and what are the current deficits. And then we, in particular, want to move into the notion of technical debt, and we want to explain how we think the whole process of release and service planning can be done better in consideration of the different stages of technical debt, and that's the key content of this presentation. We will provide an approach which is based on the research we are doing here in the Associated Laboratory for Software Engineering Decision Support at the University of Calgary here in Canada. Besides the approach, we also will offer you some concrete offer how to support the actual processes by existing tools, in particular by combining the widely used issue management system JIRA offered from Atlassian. And finally, we have also some case study illustrating our approach. We will end up in providing you guidance how to get things started. Move to the next slide. It's my pleasure to introduce Jason Ho, who is the lead analyst in our company, and Jason has worked in particular on technical debt, and he will provide the parts of the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here.
For our presentation is that we introduce the what, why, and how of release planning, and we also introduce the notion of technical debt. The main part then is to offer an analytical approach for managing technical debt. We outline some tool support, and we want to report or describe some results from a case study and provide a summary and outlook. To facilitate interaction, we want to ask you a question, how your company is release planning done? In particular, is it done in consideration of technical debt? I have just sent this question as a chat, and feel free to answer that. That would be a valuable information for us at the moment, but also even more so in the future. So let's start with the description of release planning. So we are all familiar that in iterative and incremental development that planning for new features, what needs to be released next, when to release our next product release or sub-release, and why this is done that way. So these are questions of tremendous importance for the success of any product and service portfolio. That's the one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is that this is not an easy decision-making process. So we have quite many aspects to take into consideration, starting from the different planning objectives. It's more than just business. We have very different stakeholders having different priorities, and we also have quite a number of constraints which needs to be satisfied, so constraints related to the timing, to the budget, to the resources available. So all in all, this makes this release planning important, but also very challenging, and that's the starting point of our discussion and webinar today. We want to make this process more analytical based, and we want to make this process more systematic, and we want to tell you and show you how this can be done. So the slide is illustrating the typical situation in release planning. We have two curves here. The upper one is indicating the amount of requested functionality. What is important here is that this curve is above the other curve, which reflects the amount of implemented functionality. So there is always the deficit of not being able to implement all the requested changes and new features which somehow would be of interest for the product. You instead have to limit your capacity based on your capacity, and you have to make priority-based decisions. What is the best investment for the next release or iteration? So that's the space where we are in, and there are different ways how to do that. And what we are propagating and recommending is to make this a process which is based on facts and based on analytics. We the last about 10 years with different companies around the world with different industries, and we have noticed that there is quite a number of challenges in this process, and we have listed some of them here. We talk about transparency of release decisions, so it's not just enough to decide which features should be implemented in the next iteration or release, but it's even more important also to explain it to all the stakeholders, to get their buy-in, to let them understand why certain things are done and other things need to be postponed. That's a very important aspect, and the approach we are proposing is helping to achieve this transparency. We have different other challenges. I don't want to list them here all, but one of them, and that is the focus of our discussion today, is that release planning can or should not be exclusively based on new functionality. So adding more and more and more functionality is dangerous because the system gets more and more volatile, and first, of course, to the increasing amount of technical debt. So you need to introduce also some stage where you consolidate your system, you stabilize your system, where you basically reduce the amount of technical debt which potentially has been accumulated. So that's one of the biggest challenges which we see here, and we want to also look into this more closely by starting to look into what is technical debt actually. So technical debt is something which is Ward Cunningham in 1992, and he was making the observation that, you know, in the software system development we are in, that there is a more and more amount of what he called technical debt, and what he meant by that is that we deviate more and more from the envisioned and ideal state of our whole software system. To explain this a bit more, we thought it's good to start with something known, and financial debt is